Picture a truck so small you could park it in your living room. Now picture that same truck hauling hundreds of kilograms of rice up a mountain road, a road so narrow that two people can barely pass each other on foot. And now picture that truck costing less than a used motorcycle and lasting longer than one. Sound impossible? It's not. It's real. And it's one of the most underrated engineering stories of the 20th century. This is the story of Japan's K-truck. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at a small vehicle the same way again. To understand the K-truck, you need to go back to Japan in 1947. The war is over, the cities are flattened, the economy is in ruins, there's barely any gasoline, steel is rationed, and yet millions of people still need to move things, rice, fish, timber, vegetables, across narrow dirt roads and bombed out city streets that no normal truck could ever navigate. So what did Japan do? They did what Japan always does. They made it smaller, they made it work, and they made sure it wouldn't break. In 1949, the Japanese government created the key vehicle classification, and that's Ching, meaning light, a legal category for ultra-compact vehicles with strict limits on size and engine power. And the first rules capped engine displacement at just 150 cubic centimeters. That's roughly the size of a post-war motorcycle engine. The philosophy was simple: do more with less. And honestly, the early trucks looked like someone had bolted a motorcycle engine onto a wooden shelf. No doors, no roof, a bench seat if you were lucky. But they ran. They hauled. For a country trying to feed itself from scratch, that was enough. By the mid-1950s, Japan's big manufacturers started to pay attention, and the first one to make a serious move? Suzuki. In 1959, Suzuki released the Suzuki Carry, a compact four-wheeled K-truck that was simple, tough, and perfectly sized for Japan's narrow rural lanes. It worked. Farmers loved it, and it eventually evolved into what we now call the Suzuki Carry, which, by the way, is still being made today. That's over 65 years of continuous production. Let that sink in. Entire car companies have risen and fallen in that time. The Carry just kept going. Not long after, Daihatsu made their own splash with something a little more eccentric. The Midget, launched in 1957, was a three-wheeled K-truck with a single headlight, handlebar steering, and a face that looked like a friendly cartoon robot. It was quirky, it was charming, and it became an icon. You can still find beautifully rusted midgets sitting in old Japanese barns today. Then came Subaru, yes, that's Subaru, with the Sambar in 1961. The genius move here was putting the engine in the rear, freeing up maximum cargo space up front. The Sambar stayed in production for over 50 years, one of the best-selling key trucks ever made. And then there was Honda. Honda looked at this humble little farm truck category and apparently thought, you know what this needs? A race-bred engine. Their T360, released in 1963, came with a 356 cubic centimeter four-cylinder DOHC engine, technology straight out of motorcycle racing, capable of revving to 8,000 revolutions per minute. 8,000 revolutions per minute in a truck. That's Honda in a nutshell, really. Now, here's the engineering decision that made K-trucks truly revolutionary. It's called the cab-over layout. And it sounds simple, but the impact is huge. In a normal truck, the engine sits in front of the cab. You've got a hood, then the driver. In a K-truck, and they flip that around, and they put the engine underneath the driver's seat, push the cab all the way to the front of the vehicle, and suddenly there's room, real room, for cargo. Think about this. A K-truck is less than 3.4 meters long. That's shorter than a standard parking space. And yet, it carries a flatbed big enough to haul several hundred kilograms. That's not just good design. That's a spatial miracle. And there's another benefit, the turning radius. Because of how the cab-over layout distributes weight, key trucks can turn in an incredibly tight circle, which matters a lot in Japan, where many rural roads were originally walking paths between rice paddies, never designed for vehicles at all. Basically, if it fits, a K-truck can get there. By the 1960s and 70s, K-trucks were everywhere in rural Japan. And honestly, it makes sense. Japan's geography is brutal for agriculture. More than 70% of the country is mountainous. Farmland is often carved into small terrace plots on steep hillsides, connected by paths too narrow for conventional machinery. And the K-truck fit into that world perfectly. In the morning, carry seedlings up the hill. In the afternoon, bring the harvest down to the market. Farmers customize them endlessly. Dump beds, spray tanks for pesticides, livestock enclosures. The K-truck became less of a product and more of a platform, a foundation that could become whatever a working person needed it to be. In some rural communities, the K-truck was more important than the family car. It was the machine that paid the bills. Now here's where things get interesting. In the 1980s, Japan experienced one of the most extraordinary economic booms in modern history. Stock prices and real estate values skyrocketed to almost unbelievable heights. The country was, in a word, flush. This period is known as the bubble economy, and like all bubbles, it eventually burst. But while it lasted, it transformed Japanese culture in fascinating ways. And weirdly, one of those ways involved K-trucks. Young people outside the cities started customizing their K-trucks the way Americans customize muscle cars: lift kits, off-road tires, custom paint jobs, LED light bars, long before LED light bars were a mainstream thing. K-trucks started showing up in manga, in anime, in video games. That cheerful little cab-over silhouette became shorthand for rural Japan, for a kind of honest, hard-working spirit that urban Japan looked back on with nostalgia and affection. And then, and this is my favorite part, someone decided to go racing with them. Japan has an actual K-truck racing series. These 660 cubic centimeter machines, stripped down and tuned up, going door to door on real race circuits. It is exactly as chaotic and wonderful as it sounds. Go find a video, you won't regret it. Here's something most people in the West have never been told. K-trucks are quietly all over the world. Japan has a strict vehicle inspection system called Shaken. It means that after 10 to 15 years, many vehicles, even perfectly functional ones, become too expensive to keep on Japanese roads. So they get exported by the thousands every year. In New Zealand and Australia, gray import K-trucks have become beloved farm vehicles, and parts of Africa use them on terrain that would destroy conventional trucks. Canada has growing K-truck communities in regions where the import rules are more relaxed, and in the United States, where federal law requires imported vehicles to be at least 25 years old. 1990s K-trucks are now collector items. A well-maintained Subaru Sambar or Honda Acti from the late 90s can fetch anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 at auction today, sometimes more. Think about that. A vehicle born from post-war poverty, dismissed as a toy by Western automotive writers for decades, is now a sought-after niche status symbol in America. You might be wondering, why didn't Ford or GM just make something like this? They tried occasionally, but the K-truck was the product of very specific pressures that simply didn't exist in the West: extreme space constraints, fuel scarcity, a manufacturing culture obsessed with precision and efficiency, and a society that genuinely valued small and capable over big and powerful. American roads are wide and American farms are flat. For most of the 20th century, American car culture equated size with quality. A truck the size of a dining table wasn't an engineering triumph. It was a punchline. Japan never had that luxury, so Japan built something the world had never quite seen before, a machine of spectacular usefulness, compressed into the smallest possible space and refined over 7 decades into something close to perfection. Today, K-trucks are still rolling off assembly lines. The core specs, maximum length of 3.4 meters, width of 1.48 meters, engine displacement of 660 cubic centimeters, haven't changed dramatically since 1990. Modern K-trucks have airbags, power steering, automatic transmissions, 4-wheel drive, and in some cases hybrid systems. But look at the shape. That cab-over face, the flat nose, the upright windshield, the flatbed stretching nearly to the rear bumper, is the same machine that carried Japan's harvest in 1957, just a little better. And there's something quietly amazing about that. 75 years of engineering progress, and the world still hasn't come up with a better idea, just better details. The key truck didn't just help Japan survive the post-war years. It helped Japan feed itself, grow itself, and become the economic powerhouse that stunned the world. Not bad for something you could park in your living room,